Chapter 7. Listening and Talking. Why do you always have to listen? What makes people like to talk to you? What does someone you're talking to do? When can you be sure that you will be heard? If you've read this, every conversation will be better than ever. You will be addressed more often. People will find it more pleasant to talk to you and much more candid. And above all, you yourself will be heard better. In a good conversation, you keep your mouth shut. Listen to the other person, and if you want to say something, ask a question. This is the basic rule for any successful networker. A basic rule that I know very well myself, but I violate it at almost every meeting. But just like you, I keep striving for the best results and keep working on applying the basic rule. Why is it so hard to listen to others? Why do you always want to say something? What makes it so difficult that you keep falling back into talking when you achieve so much more by listening? I do have answers to these questions for myself, but those answers are not of much use to you. They are answers based on my personal character. You must discover for yourself why you want to speak immediately in response to what you hear. You have to force yourself and become proficient in listening more than talking. Even if that is not always the case. By the way, be aware that listening means more than not talking. You only listen when you can fully empathize with the other person's story with feeling, image, and color. Don't confuse this with technical listening where you say yes or no at the right time or ask a strategic open or closed question. That is quite easy to learn. No, this is about listening that you experience everything with your whole being in mind with what the other person tells you. It is the willingness to push yourself into the background in the conversation and to put yourself completely in the other person's shoes in terms of feeling and experience. If you wonder why you would do that, don't you eventually come to the meeting to tell your story and introduce your person and company? If you're wondering that, you're absolutely right to begin with. But you miss something, and that's the next thing. As long as the other person has his story in his head, he will never hear what you say. Only when the other person feels, pays attention, does not hear but feels and receives confirmation that you have heard him, he will only be ready to hear your story with genuine interest and attention. And that insight is far more important than my personal answers to the questions posed about why listening is so difficult. Mind you, I'm talking here about something I've been trying to master for years. I know it works. I've experienced that often enough. But there are just as often so many moments when I fail to do this. At the slightest topic of conversation that touches me, I automatically switch enthusiastically into the "I recognize that" or worse, "I know better" mode. And here I am again spouting many possible solutions and opinions. The pointless thing about this is that the interlocutor really can't do anything with it. Even though I may be right or the best solution ever. He doesn't even hear it because his thoughts are still in the middle of his own conversation. An unsatisfied feeling for both of them soon follows. And we just wanted to relax and network more easily. Listen carefully, how do you do that? But now let's focus on those moments when you're completely in control and ready to listen. How do you do that then? Or what do you have to do for that? What matters when listening is the experience of the other. Not your interpretation of his words, but getting in line with the other person's feelings. Nonverbal communication also plays an important role here. As you listen, pay close attention to body posture, gestures, facial expression, and anything nonverbally expressed by the other person. You can see how important this is from this example. Suppose someone says in a neutral attitude, "I don't feel so well." What do you think or say back? Probably something like, "Oh, have you eaten something wrong?" But suppose someone says, "I don't feel so well," and cringes as his hand grabs his chest. What do you say then? Or better yet, what do you do? You immediately call 112, call for help, think about how to resuscitate and ask whether an AED or doctor is present. Do you now understand that just interpreting words is not enough to listen well? You must have the complete picture of your interlocutor in view. Verbal and non-verbal. How do you ensure that the other person feels heard? Then there is the aspect that the other must feel heard. The other must receive confirmation that you understand him well. Because if this has not been confirmed, then your conversation partner is still completely thinking about his story and there is no room for attention for you. The trick and really only method to give this confirmation is to feed back the exact feeling and words of the speaker. Please note, this is an exact representation. Not for your interpretation. Just saying "I understand what you mean" is also not enough. No, an exact representation is the only correct method to give confirmation in word and experience. Such an exact representation is immediately recognized by your interlocutor because it is his own words that he hears back and his own emotion that you show. This ensures that your conversation partner feels heard and that space is created to listen to you. And you now know that as long as that space is not there, it makes no sense for you to tell your story. What is such an exact representation then? An example. Someone tells you with an angry face how much trouble he has had with a particular case. Even now he squeezes his hands closed with anger and annoyance and says how terribly angry he was when that case played out. Your reaction to that could be, "You were very angry when that case came up." As you say this, your face reflects his anger and you also squeeze your hands and feel the anger. That's all, an exact reflection. And now you shut up. Your interlocutor can now continue because he has been confirmed in his own words that you understand him. He also sees from your body language that you really understand his anger as if you feel it. There will soon be space for your story. You recognize that moment quickly because your conversation partner usually introduces it himself with the words, "But enough about that. Tell me about you." Now you know you're going to be heard. Start talking now, but keep gauging whether you are holding the attention of your conversation partner. What if the other person doesn't listen to you? If the moment that you get all the attention does not come now, accept that. That can sometimes just be the case. Most people aren't used to listeners and take their chance to tell you everything they want to say. That can sometimes go a long way. Suddenly you get to hear all kinds of private matters, for example. If that happens to you, protect your interlocutor a little from himself. In a sympathetic way, slow him down a bit with closed questions. If the conversation tends to turn to gossip about others, end it abruptly. In any case, never go along with that. You simply should never gossip, especially not while networking in a business environment. If someone can no longer get off their talking chair and you see interest in the relationship, then there is a good opportunity for both of you. You interrupt the conversation at an appropriate moment and show your interest in the conversation by asking to make an appointment. Your interlocutor will certainly not blame you for the interruption. And that deal was soon made. Then shake hands immediately after making the appointment and continue. You mingle with the crowd or go to the toilet. If you stay standing, there is a chance that you will start talking again with each other and you will no longer be able to meet others. Summary. In a good conversation you keep your mouth shut. Listen to the other person and if you want to say something, ask a question. Keep this as a starting point and you will be a pleasant conversation partner. Why is this so important? Because ultimately you want to be heard yourself. You now know that you first have to create listening space with your conversation partner. That space only arises when the interlocutor has had his say. Sometimes that space does not arise, accept it and continue listening. If it takes too long, say goodbye sympathetically, make an appointment to listen further and continue making other contacts. What comes next? Chapter 8. Your own introduction.